Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Permata from 6th semester English Education Department. Here, I would like to explanation about second language acquisition. The material is what is interlanguage? In my opinion, interlanguage is a practice of accepting a language where the language is between the first language and second language. So, in interlanguage, the language competence of learners is in two situations, namely the language being understood and the language being studied first, because the target language he has not been able to live his tradition in the first language. Interlanguage is not a native language, and it's not a target language. Besides, the position of the language is in the middle between first and second language. Then, in language acceptance interlanguage, it's subjective by intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Additionally, there are also strategies that are used which are oral and written language, then interlanguage agrees or errors and mistakes. Computational models are strictly related to interlanguage. The computational models describe how the steps that learners go through. In interlanguage, from the input to the output, this language acquisition instrument works like a computer where a learner receives information, stores it, and uses it. For the next slides is about the example in real situation. This is the steps how to we accept computational models in real life. The first step here is the input is where the learners see and record information from what they see. This procedure is the most basic process. Second is consumption process is the information in short-term memory. For example, when they hear or see a word or phrase, it will be a short-term memory. For the third, second language knowledge, this stage agrees the learners to store information they have got in long-term memory in a black box in which interlanguage is assembled. At this step, the learners can understand several things like present, past, future tense, but they still run into problems such as errors and mistakes. The last is output. In this step, learners are able to produce information by oral language and written language. In interlanguage, there are two kinds of transfer. They are positive and negative transfer. Positive transfer happens when a person well confirms information and the listener can and respond to what is conveyed. If there is an error in the procedure but the listener knows the meaning, it is still called a positive transfer. For the next is negative transfer. Negative transfer happens when a person be unsuccessful to convey information. Usually, person cannot convey information and the person being spoken doesn't understand, so this person still in second language knowledge step. And besides, negative transfer happens when the people being spoken but to understand is unable to respond. Also, if the errors happens constantly, it is dignified a negative transfer. For the example, Bella is a fan of Korean dramas. Almost every day, she watches it with different Korean drama titles. At first, she didn't understand Korean language at all, but from the results she watched Korean drama, she understood Korean a little bit. Okay guys, thank you for the watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.